Mike has done a tremendous amount of work to solve Pauline's murder. Most people would have given up on such a monumental task long ago. Without the resources he once had as a law enforcement officer, he pressed forward on his own, driven by persistence, careful research, and a commitment to uncovering the truth. Eventually, Mike gathered enough compelling information to approach the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Two critical breakthroughs stood out: the discovery of a firearm that may have been used in the so-called ambush, and his revealing conversation with state medical examiner Dr. Jerry Francisco about why Pauline was never autopsied. Those two factors helped breathe new life into the investigation, finally forcing officials to revisit the circumstances surrounding Pauline's death. Now, with Buford's statement finally made public, even more questions arise about his actions on the morning of August 12, 1967. His words raise troubling inconsistencies that can no longer be ignored. Here is Mike to explain.
Welcome, everyone. As many of you know, I've investigated the death of Pauline Pusser for many, many years. And if you're new to this channel, you might want to know up front that we don't hold anything back. What we tell are the facts, not the walking tall legend. And so what we've done today is break up Buford's initial statement that he gave to the TBI into 5 different sections. And the first one is 2 stories for 2 audiences. Once Buford was able, he gave his first statement to the investigators from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Now, you might be aware in that they would ask direct questions and let him tell his story as he remembered things. And what they were looking for was information that they could check out, verify, and possibly what he could provide in a forensic type of way. And the second story is more about what he would say later to the press, to the media. And it was an entirely different story than the one he told the investigators at the TBI. I believe that this is where a lot of the walking tall legend came from. They seem to run absolutely with the story that he told the media. So you have to consider that whenever you're thinking about all of this. Now, what I'd like everyone to understand is that Buford's 2 versions, the one he told the TBI and the one that he told the media, were very different. When they diverged, it raised questions, and understandably so. In the movie version, it was daylight when Buford and Pauline left the house. She wanted to go with him to see what his job was like. But yet he told the TBI a very different story, that it was dark. Now, he did say that she volunteered to go, wanted to go with him, but that's not how it actually was. But the most disturbing part was after she was shot, his actions there proved so reckless for both Pauline's life and his own, because a person's normal reaction would be, I've got to get help. I've got to get my wife help. I'm about to bleed to death, and I've got to do something for her before that happens. But what did Buford say he did? He drove up and down searching for this phantom Cadillac that no one else saw, no one else can identify. The TBI couldn't identify. There were no witnesses. Once again, when he was shot, no witnesses. It's happened before, happened again. But he drives down to Highway 45, turns north, looking for this phantom Cadillac. He turns around when he can't find it up there, so he heads back to the state line, turns around in the parking lot. He's driving all over with Pauline laying in the seat beside him. Her head opened up from the second gunshot wound, or what he alleged was the second gunshot wound. Most people wouldn't do that. And that tells you something about his priorities and possible staging of the ambush. Now, another thing that investigators probably thought deeply about was Buford's choice to drive toward the medical hospital in Selmer, about 17, 18 miles away, when the hospital in Corinth was just right down 45, much closer. And if there was a hope of saving his mortally and possibly already dead wife, Pauline, he would have gone to Corinth, not Selmer. He would have stopped anywhere looking for any assistance he could get. Mamie Gilchrist Elam even drove up and saw that he was in distress and went to make a call to get an ambulance there. And what did Buford do? He heads for Selmer, not Corinth. He didn't wait for an ambulance. That would have been the smart thing where both of them could have got immediate assistance. But that certainly says something about his priorities, something that I'm sure that investigators would have concentrated on. I would have. I think anybody who's ever been in law enforcement would have wondered, why did he insist on going to Selmer? Was he afraid to cross the state line and this ambush possibly becoming an event that the FBI could get involved in? That has to be considered as well. Another thing that stood out to me as I read Buford's statement was the fact that he was telling investigators how he was groggy while he was driving around looking for this phantom Cadillac and the ambush party. So much so that while he was stopped in front of the Shamrock Motel, he intended to go down State Line Road almost directly across the highway from him. But yet, as he crossed the highway, he turned on to New Hope Road. He said that he had driven up that ways when he realized that he was taking the wrong road. So he turned around and went back, saying again that he was groggy. Now this was from blood loss, but I don't know if the investigators were buying it because I don't. It shows that he is probably trying to set up a story that explains all of this as an ambush, not a murder where he killed his wife. And the fact that he could get to Albert Kitty's place, stop there. And that's when Amy Gilchrist Elam came up and wanted to get help for him. But yet, he drove away. Was he groggy when he made that decision? Now, some people will try to explain this away as he was in shock. You have to ask yourself and be honest. If your wife is laying there, are you going to keep looking for these phantom killers, phantom Cadillac, or are you going to get help for your wife, which is much closer to go into Corinth than to take off a second time and drive toward Selmer and a smaller hospital that was there? It really indicates deception on Buford's part in his statement. So why wasn't Corinth his choice of places to take Pauline immediately? Even if it wasn't his choice destination, why not stop at a house, a business, when a car pulled up alongside of him, or while he was sitting there in basically Albert Kitty's yard? Why not just, if you feel like you're too groggy, lay on the horn until somebody comes out to check on you and I'll let them call for an ambulance? But he didn't do that. He still had the wherewithal to start up and drive toward Selmer. It speaks volumes about how desperate he was in that moment. that he was not going to cross into Mississippi, that he was trying to set up a narrative. He wanted to control the narrative. So you have that to consider. I think most prosecutors in that day or any day would have looked at his statement and said, I've got enough to charge Buford for her murder right now, or at least to detain him for further questioning. Why the prosecutor did not do that, I don't know. Why that the investigators didn't make the decision to take him into custody as he made that statement, I don't know. Especially back in the 60s, they would have had more than adequate information from his own statement to do exactly that. When you break Buford's own statement down into pieces, look at it section by section, and you have to realize that it is full of deception, deceit. Buford wanted to control the narrative about what had happened to Pauline. He was not wanting them to look at evidence. He wanted them to listen to exactly what he had to say, hoping that they would accept it as the truth. That's going to be about it for today. I would like to say that, of course, there's a lot of people out there who want nothing to do with the real story. They want to believe in the legend. Hey, watching the movie and saying I enjoyed it is one thing. But when I see people make outrageous statements about how all I've tried to do is tear Buford's legend down and say bad things about a good man, they don't understand who and what Buford was. He was a murderer. Was his reputation, was his legend worth more than Pauline's life? If you think that way, then you need to take a look at yourself in the mirror. It's just a sad way to be. Well, as I was saying, I'll get off my soapbox now, let you consider all this. I would encourage you to go to my Facebook page, Buford Pusser, the other story, just like the videos that I make, just like the book that I wrote, and really take a look at things. Examine what the story is. Forget about the movie. The best thing that you can do for yourself, if you want to know the real story, is forget everything you thought you knew about Buford Pusser. Start all over and start dealing with facts. We're about to get the TBI report out, and I think we'll all be shocked and surprised by what we learn. Even I'm going to be shocked at a lot of the stuff that I never ran across. I know that they've been able, with their resources, to do a much more intensive investigation than I did. And look what I found. It was enough to get the TBI started again on this cold case. So imagine what that they've located if there's 2,000 pages in that report. Makes you stop and think. Some of these naysayers are going to have a lot of egg on their face. Well, I'm out of here, guys. We'll see you Saturday. And remember, truth has no agenda. Thanks for watching. And we finally got justice for Pauline.